Bill Gates how big a problem polio really is.
Well, polio is close to being eradicated, and if we can keep the funding up and keep doing a good job on it, it'll become the second disease ever eliminated, and no kid will ever be paralyzed again.
How much money is needed?
The campaign costs almost $1 billion a year, and if we look at the next couple of years, we're about 700 million short. So we need to draw on more people and get this thing done. We're down to the last 1% of cases, but that's the hardest part.
Melinda Gates, the distinction a lot of people make between you and your husband when it comes to the Foundation's work is that he's obsessed with vaccines and technological answers, and that you're obsessed with the human dimension. Is that a cruel observation?
I think we're both obsessed, actually, with vaccines, if you want to know the truth. And it's because of what it does, though. It saves children's lives. When you say there are 8 million children who die every single year, many from vaccine-preventable diseases, and we know we can tackle those diseases, it makes me excited about getting those tools out to mothers so that they know they can raise healthy children.
Well, now we'd like to let our viewers ask you questions, and they've been tweeting questions all day. Bill Gates, with the amount of money the Foundation donates, how do you prevent corruption?
Well, what you want to make sure of is that you're having a big impact. And with vaccines, it's not that easy for corruption to creep in. There may be a tiny bit of it, but dictators don't like to stockpile vaccines. It's not that exciting for them. And you can measure where you're getting the coverage. And in fact, if somebody's not doing the job well, the diseases like measles or more polio will show up. And so we're working hard to make sure that health aid really has the big impact.
Well, let me ask you the next viewer's question, which was tweeted in. What are you doing, Melinda, to ensure that governments don't shirk their commitments to aid, as they may feel your commitments are enough?
Well, that's exactly what we're doing, is we'll put in our commitment and say this is what we feel like we should do as private citizens. And if we think our investment is this important, I mean, one of the things we've done for the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations is we made a second grant to that organization, a huge grant. So our whole commitment is $1.5 billion. But knowing that we were doing it to set an example for governments, because we can never scale this the way governments can. And so we're saying this is our investment, and if we feel this strongly about putting our own money, we think it's a good investment for governments to make as well.
And Melinda, because you've just been in a malarial area, let me press you then on this next question from a viewer. What progress has been made towards wiping out malaria in percentage terms?
Well, we have a whole host of countries that are really taking down their malarial rate, whether it's Ethiopia or Kenya or other African nations, and it's because of the tools that we're getting out there. So we're starting to see local places that we can talk about eliminations happening by country. And again, it's because we're getting malarial medicines out there, we're getting bed nets out there, mothers are starting to use them. So those are cultural messages, getting moms and babies to sleep under them. And then ultimately, again, it's a malaria vaccine, but we have one coming in the next few years. So we can actually talk about, in my lifetime, eradicating malaria.
Why are you spending so much money on these drugs? Is it not supporting corrupt drug companies? One viewer asks Bill.
Well, in fact, when the vaccines and drugs are made available for these poor countries, they're made available at an extremely low price. And there's a lot of competition. The low-cost manufacturers come in because the volume is very high. And we spend a lot of time making sure that the costs are very, very low. Now, the drug companies are important. They're key to helping us invent the new drugs. And so what they do is they try to make their money off of the more well-off consumers while offering a sort of break-even price for the poorest. And that balance works. We rank all the drug companies every year in terms of how much they're helping the poorest, and they compete because their employees care a lot about this.
And to what extent does the Gates Fund efforts of existing charities and NGOs and not duplicate work and resources unnecessarily?
So much of the work that we do is through existing NGOs. A great example is Save the Children. We spend millions of dollars with Save the Children because we have a central mission that is the same, which is to help raise up healthy mothers and healthy babies. And they do a lot of this community behavioral change work on the ground that is absolutely imperative for saving a newborn life. We know half the deaths for children come in that first month of life, and Save the Children knows how to go after those moms and works in those communities. So they're one of our fundamental partners.
Bill, finally, you know, Microsoft, that's behind you, or it's still part of you, or are you living in a new world? Do you tweet? I mean, is your iPad somewhere down there in your left hand? What's your life now?
Well, I get to use technology to stay in touch, and that's fantastic. I've got 2 million follows on Twitter, and you know, I use that to get feedback from people what they're thinking about. I spend a little bit of time at Microsoft, and I enjoy that, but my full-time work is at the foundation.
Of course, some of the ill-informed, Melinda, used to think he was rather geeky. Have you humanized him?
I don't think it's me that's humanized him, but I don't think that you can be out in the developing world and not be touched by what you've seen. And Bill travels extensively. We travel together and alone to the developing world, and I think you come back changed and touched by that, and I think that's part of what you're seeing.
Bill and Melinda Gates talking to John earlier, and thank you to everyone who sent in your questions over Twitter. You can see the whole exchange on the website channel4.com/news. We're back tomorrow at 7. Till